Good morning, Southern Texas PGA members and associates, and welcome to the Southern Texas PGA Tuesday Education Forum. I'm excited for a great morning of education with two PGA members, Rick Sessinghaus and Ted Eliterio. Congratulations to our new board members who were elected during yesterday's 53rd annual meeting, President James Brown, Vice President Brian Minnick, Secretary Rich Ballinger, and at-large directors Craig Hicks and Rob Yee. As a reminder to everybody, our social media contest that began yesterday will continue through today's education, so be sure to tag us on social media with your viewing setup and thoughts to be entered to win a snag bag from our sponsors, CMC, Ray, and Winston Collection. For both speakers today, we will have a short question and answer period following their presentations. Should you have any questions arise during or following their presentations, please submit those via the Blue Jeans chat feature on the right-hand side of your screen. Directions on how to access this chat feature can be found in the email that was sent this morning with the link to join. You can also email those directly to me at sarcher@pgahq.com. Our first speaker today is going to be Rick Sessinghaus. He is the expert on the mindset principles that make or break performance on and off the golf course. He is an instructional editor for Golf Tips magazine and can be seen on Fox Sports Network as a mental game contributor. Rick's book, Golf, The Ultimate Mind Game, has been featured in national golf magazines and used by leading golf instructors across the country as the best resource to improve your mental game. Rick has his master's and doctorate degrees in applied sports psychology and has coached a Colin Morikawa, 2021 WGC Workday Champion, and 2020 PGA Champion. Please enjoy this short video, and then following that, Rick's presentation.
You know, we've been working together, and it's crazy to think back. It's been 15 years since I was a junior, but to have him, there, it's just been tremendous help. You know, every time he's here, he's always offered some extra little insight. He says something, he knows what to say, when to say it, and he says the right things. But PGA professionals, in general, have all just been helpful. No matter where I've been playing, no matter who they are, they're all amazing people. And at the end of the day, we all love golf. And I think that's what makes it so fun, is that they love it just as much as I do. And, I'm just very fortunate enough to be out here playing against the best players in the world every day and do what I love. They're doing what they love too. So thank you, Rick, for everything we've gone through. Wherever your golf journey is headed, a PGA coach will get you there. Find your PGA coach at pga.com/coach.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to share some of my story and some ideas that I have that's related to coaching. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share it with other PGA members. I've been extremely fortunate to be able to be teaching golf for now over 27 years. It's very interesting today and very honored to be sharing this with a very good friend and mentor, Ted Eliterio, who was a huge mentor of mine early on in my coaching. And so it's great for us to both be able to share our expertises with you today. My background is one of many that probably are out there. I started off as somebody who was passionate about playing the game. And I was fortunate to play Division I college golf at Cal State Northridge. And I was an average D1 player, but I was so passionate about the game. And then after that, I wanted to be around the game. And so I was given the opportunity to start my teaching career. And from there, I have just loved the industry and loved being able to share and be able to connect with the great industry that we have. So I've been a member of the PGA for now over 20 years. As I said before, I have a doctorate in applied sports psychology, which we'll get into here in a moment. I also get into something called flow coaching, which is something that in the last 3 to 5 years, I've really taken a deep dive on. Been fortunate to work with UCLA's men's golf team for the last 7 years. So I get to see the development of these young men who are now going through the challenges of college golf and being able to manage all the things that go with being a student athlete. And I've been extremely grateful for the opportunity to be Colin Morikawa's swing and mental coach since he's 8 years old. And I'll tell a little bit about that journey here at the end of today's session. And I did write a book about 15 years ago, Golf, the Ultimate Mind Game. I'm writing a new book right now, and I'm always learning. And I want this to be kind of part of the main theme today, is that if we're always learning, we're always growing, and we can always get better. And so we look at this idea of flow state, right? I'm talking about being in an optimal state. Well, it comes from an actual professor by the name of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who has written several books on flow, and I encourage you to read Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. And 40 years ago or so, he kind of broke away from traditional psychology and say, why are we only studying what's wrong with people? And him and Martin Seligman started something called the positive psychology movement. And part of that was this idea of flow, when we're at our best and we feel our best. And I always resonated towards that as I was studying golf, is that I was going, why in golf we focus so much on what's wrong with people, what's wrong with their golf swing and this and that. And I wanted to talk more about what was right. I believe in all of us are the skills and the traits that we can play great golf, we can be great teachers, we can be great PGA professionals. And I want to learn how to train that. When I went to school to pursue more about sports psychology, it was called the zone. And this idea that it was fleeting and then hope you get into it. I didn't like that answer. I want things to be trainable, repeatable. And so in the last 5 years, I've been able to take that deeper dive. And now through different research and certainly through just being out there more often, we now know that actually flow is a replicable state. We can train it, and it actually has things that are associated with it that make it a specific state, which we'll get into here in a moment. So I've been obsessed with being able to help that golfer who, they on the range, they look like they're going to break 80, and then they come back for their next lesson and they tell you they shot 95. I think those are more mental performance skills that need to be taught and coached. And so I go with this idea of flow is trainable, it's repeatable, and they're actual skill sets. So when we look at it, flow is that optimal state. We're at our best, we feel our best. And I always pose the question even to you out there. Think about a time you were in flow. It might have been on the golf course, right? It might have been when you're coaching. It might have been when you're given an awesome member guest tournament and you were in there for your members, but you were fully engaged in the present moment. You wanted to be there. And I think what we want to do is we want to kind of reverse engineer what led to that. So a lot of it is, what are the routines and strategies that could help us get into an optimal state? Now, we have tools out there, certainly like certain breathing patterns, visualization, something I call cognitive reframing, which I'll talk about in a moment, anchors. We can even use yoga and how we exercise to help us get into a flow state. But remember, flow is about being in the present moment. And what's going to drive that present moment is the actual skill. And so when we look at, for instance, cognitive reframing, it's probably a skill that I think is the most important for anybody, not just golfers, to start to learn. How you look at things. Your perception is your reality. And so, yes, Colin just won an unbelievable golf tournament this past weekend. And if they ask him about sleeping on the lead, his way of the meaning of that was, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that. Other people may look at that as, oh, something to fear. I don't want to mess up, right? So how you look at things is how your life is going to be. I just want to help golfers look at each shot as an opportunity to be excited, to can't wait to hit that instead of fearful. So when we look at what creates a flow state, we also unfortunately have to look at what interferes with the flow state. So let's first talk about what will help us get into more of a flow state. So this model I'm sharing with you comes from a gentleman by the name of Stephen Kotler and his company, Flow Research Collective. I was fortunate enough to do a coaching certification through. Stephen Kotler has written several books, two books in particular that are related to flow. One is called The Rise of Superman, which is his research on action sports athletes and why they got into flow more often, which I'll talk about in a moment. His new book that just came out, called The Art of the Impossible, is a manual basically for how to create more flow in your life. So again, I was fortunate to be able to learn from him and his company about this flow model. And briefly, I just want to kind of go over some of the main areas. First, it always starts with mindset, doesn't it? You know, we have these players that come to us. We would much rather them be in a growth mindset where they actually want to learn, they believe they can learn, and they're along for that journey, even if there's some bumps in the road. Unfortunately, we've had some of our golfers that have been in a fixed mindset. I've tried everything. I can't get better. I'm not athletic. And they're already in a state which is going to make it very difficult for them to learn. So it always starts with mindset. Next is motivation. I want to make sure that that golfer is there for the right reasons and for intrinsically, they can't wait to go play golf. Flow has been associated with intrinsic motivation. Doing an activity for purely the joy of doing it, not doing it for what it could bring me, which would be extrinsic. Nothing inherently wrong with extrinsic. However, flow is about being in the moment and wanting to be in that moment. So motivation is very, very important. The next thing is goals. We need to be clear on what we want to accomplish. Now, I'm a little different than maybe some other mental game coaches that you'll hear. I actually believe outcomes are very important to talk about. I know it's very important to have processes, and I certainly will talk about processes and routines, yet we need to be clear on where we're going and actually getting excited about outcome, not being fearful of what could happen. So let's get clear on what those goals are, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Positive psychology basics is flow requires a lot of energy. And so for us to be able to focus in an intense way for a long period of time requires energy. So positive psychology basics would be things like our sleep patterns, hydration, nutrition, exercise, stress reduction, how you recover. That's a very important component to be able to live a fulfilling life. And so I do talk about these things with my golfers. I want to know how their sleep patterns are, right? We have the Whoop now, right? Everybody is knowing what their recovery scores are and their sleep patterns. That's a good awareness tool. I'm trying to create a foundation so they're able to show up every single day with enough energy to be in the present moment. Now, the exciting stuff I love talking about are certainly what would trigger flow, what gets us into flow, what's the cycle of how that flow cycle works. And then on the other side, what blocks it? What interferes with that? That's, of course, at the core of coaching it. The last area I just briefly want to summarize is we're not always in flow. Things are not always easy. How do we deal with the adversity? And we certainly have mental toughness, which is in the moment, is how can I deal with a bad break or a missed putt? But how about long-term? You know, I look at long-term development with the players that I work with. And part of that is now studying something called grit, which is our perseverance over the long term. How can we still stay motivated and dedicated to this plan even when we're getting hit and beat up? That's a skill. And I believe that's something that I really enjoy helping the younger generation with, is the 15, 16, 17-year-old who has these dreams, has these passions, and sometimes it doesn't always work out and they have to be able to adapt. So grit is a key skill to the flow cycle. Well, let's look at the first thing of flow. As I've mentioned a few times now, flow is about being in the present moment. The number one skill is focus. What are you paying attention to? That's it. So what's been interesting in the last few years is we actually have research that shows how and what can actually get our attention into the present moment. Certainly, I talk about pre-shot routine, and that's a great way to help somebody. If you ask better questions and what you pay attention to with your eyes certainly keeps you focused. Yet there's been also now research talking about different flow triggers. So an example for you would be if I ask, and it doesn't matter the level of golfer, by the way, I ask them, so are you good at recovery shots or trouble shots? And they think and they go, yeah, I don't know why, Rick, but I actually pull them off fairly well. So it doesn't matter their skill set, but they find that they hit these wonderful golf shots out of trouble and these recovery shots. Now, I think it's mental. I think their focus was heightened in that moment, that they were challenged just enough to get their attention. So use that recovery shot as an example. Let's say we're in the right-hand rough. We have a tree branch right in front of us, 160 yards away. There's a gap in between the two bunkers to get that ball on the green. It's going to require a low cut to run on. So if I look at this list here of things that could trigger focus into the present moment, we have a lot of triggers that would help our focus in that present moment. Most trouble shots have some form of risk involved, right? I could hit the branch in front of me. We pay attention when there's risk in the environment. Next, novelty. It's new. We don't actually practice this shot very often. We have to now pay attention to the lie and the tree and everything. It's new. We pay attention to things that are new. Next, complex. You bet. I got to take into the lie and the tree and all the things that are out there. There's a lot of stuff going on there that is complex that I have to now make a decision on. And part of that complexity is also unpredictability. How is this ball actually going to come out of this rough? How is it actually going to fly? Is it going to hit this? Is it going to actually roll on? There's a lot of things that could go on with this. But when it's unpredictable, we tend to, again, pay attention to it. Deep embodiment would be one of those where we're just fully immersed in the moment in our senses, right? And I think people do that even on trouble shots is they take a practice swing and they kind of feel the shot out and everything. The next one, which I think is at the core of focus, is clear goals. When we have a clear goal, we do pay attention, and it tends to narrow to what we want. So a lot of people say, wow, my visualization skills are so good in a trouble shot or recovery shot because the tree limb's here and I can know where I have to go, and they tend to have very clear goals in the moment. There is challenge. We're going to talk about challenge skills in just a moment. We pay attention to things that are challenging. Creativity. This requires creativity. So I've used one golf shot and I've stacked a bunch of things that drive attention into the present moment. Wouldn't it be nice to have that level of intensity on a shot-by-shot basis? That's the skill that we're actually teaching. Now, my flow trigger the most is curiosity. As a coach, I am curious about different situations. I'm curious about how my students are interpreting things. So I ask a lot of questions and I have a lot of passion around it. So that drives me to focus in the present moment. As coaches, again, we can be curious. We are passionate already. We have a purpose behind it. That brings the best version of ourselves in that moment. So autonomy, golf, hey, it's up to us. We're in complete control. Other team sports, maybe not so much. So these are all examples of flow triggers that, again, brings focus to the present moment. Flow follows focus. The second major principle of flow, and this is in Csikszentmihalyi's work, is this idea of challenge versus skills. And it seems simple, yet it's a very powerful graph. Is when we go back to that trouble shot, there was challenge involved for sure. And it required us to use a lot of our skill set. And so when the challenge was high and the skill was high, we got into a flow state. So flow is not about wishing things were easy. In fact, flow is about when we're challenged. So I want people to embrace being challenged on the golf course. I want them to push themselves with new goals. I want themselves to push themselves on this shot so they're fully focused in the present moment. But a word that I haven't used yet for this is perception of challenge, perception of skill. So I ask a lot of competitive golfers. I work with a lot of competitive juniors. And I ask them, so do you have the skill to hit a driver at least 250 yards within that 40-yard grid out there on the range? And they look at me like, well, of course, Rick, I just showed you. I did 8 in a row. I go, great. So now we're on the first tee of your tournament tomorrow, and the shot requires you to hit a 250-yard drive in a 40-yard grid. You feel like you could do it tomorrow? And they go, well, Rick, it's the first tee and people are watching and it's an important tournament, and they're going to give me a story that now the perception of challenge has gone really high, and at times they now may feel anxious and worried because they've now blown up the challenge greater than what they believe their skill set is. Well, the skill actually wasn't any different. It was their perception of the challenge that now had increased. Thus, they now feel a anxiety. Anxiety is about fearful of what's going to happen in the future. Worry, I wonder if I can do this or not. Yet, the day before, I'm on the range with somebody, they said, no, I got the skill. Easy game. So I love talking about the perception of challenge, perception of skill. Let me turn it around the other way. A lot of good players sometimes take shots for granted. But what I mean by that is that, okay, we have a shot from 100 yards, middle of the fairway, ball sitting up, no wind, middle hole location, green is receptive, it's flat, no bunkers, no slope, no nothing. So for a lot of really good players, the perception of that challenge is quite low. Oh, this is an easy shot, Rick. I can do this in my sleep. Okay? Then they hit the shot to 50 feet. They fan it short right, and then they get mad at themselves. And I said, well, what happened? And if they're honest with me, they said, hey, Rick, I took it for granted. I got bored. I got too relaxed on it. They weren't intensely focused in the present moment. So sometimes when we talk about flow, yes, it's about when we're challenged and we have that focus there, but it's on both sides of that scale where people either believe the challenge is too great for their skills, they feel anxious, or a lot of good players, they take shots for granted. They believe, yeah, I got this, I've done it a million times. So in those cases, I have to challenge that player. I have to say, okay, you're 100, I can tell you're taking this for granted. If it's so easy, knock it to 3 feet. Now I know PGA Tour averages about 14 feet. So I'm challenging them beyond what their normal is to wake them up. Or I might compete against them. Okay, if you're so good, let's see who gets closest. Now I'm adding a level of challenge, perception-wise, remember, that helps them now focus. So this is a key component that Professor Csikszentmihalyi came out with, is that when we're in a flow state, we are actually being challenged and we're bringing all of our skills to the table. That's when we're fulfilled. We're at our best as we take on those challenges. And so some of the research also is talking about that if I can help a golfer in their practice push themselves 1% to 4% outside of their current skill sets, they're more likely to get into a flow state. So I've had to improve my ability as a coach to set up practice habits and schedules for my players. I think it used to be in vogue to challenge our players and give them, sometimes, okay, you got to make 100 4-footers in a row before you can leave the practice green. Well, that may actually create too much anxiety for a player. But if we start off with 20, they can do it, but it's going to require them to be there present for 20 repetitions. And then they can go to 21 and 22. That's what I've adjusted in my coaching, is I'm looking for incremental gains on a daily basis instead of trying to be like, okay, I'm going to push you to the limit to, where it's actually outside of their current skill set. So 1% to 4% is the current sweet spot for us to push a player and to help them not only with practice, but even on a shot-by-shot basis, is we can push them enough to say, okay, I could do that, but it's going to require me to be fully focused. So flow follows focus, and flow also is about when the challenge and the skills match, that we're at our best. Now, the last major component is I mentioned about goals. This is something that I did not do as often. I ask people about their goals, but now I want to reverse engineer. How are we going to achieve their goals? And so sometimes it starts with a very, very high, hard goal, 2, 5, sometimes 10 years away. I have a lot of juniors, 16-year-old. They want a college scholarship, which is 2 or 3 years away. That's a high, hard goal. And they get excited about it, yet they don't have a plan for it. So my job as a coach is to reverse engineer that and say, okay, in the next year, what are some of the goals that are going to help you get recruited by those type of universities? What type of performance do you need to match? What's our scoring average going to be? What we get into a lot of outcomes. I believe if you're clear on your outcome, then it's much easier to identify the processes. I don't teach the same process to Colin Morikawa, who wants to be the #1 player in the world, that I do to an 18 handicap who practices once a month. I want to know what somebody wants. I want to know what their performance are, their data points, and how we're going to improve that. So now on a quarterly basis, we may have a performance plan that's going to help something. So for instance, if somebody was working on putting, we would want to identify whether it's through data collection or talking to a putting coach or something like that is like, okay, what is specifically we can work on? Now, we can work on the stroke, but within that is, are we working on start lines? Are we working on speed control? Are we working on reading of greens? Are we working on commitment to shot? We have a lot of puzzle pieces that I'm looking at that is going to lead to performance. Once I can break that down, then we can create goals along in the training that are going to help see, are we getting there? So one of it might be, hey, I need to get my ball started on the line better with my putting, which is going to require me to have club face control coming through. I'm going to use a mirror drill. I'm going to use a T drill in front of me to help that. I'm also going to work on grip pressure to maintain my club face coming through. Now we're getting very clear on what would happen on a daily and on a putt by putt basis. Flow follows focus. Goals help us learn what am I paying attention to and why. We need to get clearer in helping our players of what is in their control, which is this shot. Even in practice, we get a lot of players who are complacent. They just hit a bunch of block practice and they're not fully engaged. So I am very clear on goals. And as an instructor and as a coach, I want to make sure they're fully engaged with the process. That might require them to challenge them. It might have them get clear on the drills that they need to do. But again, we want to create a plan for them. And for a lot of the golfers, they would email me on a Sunday night of what their practice is going to be for the coming week. They have to calendar it because a lot of juniors and college players, they have busy schedules. They have academics. They have stuff there. So we block it already out. I'm not expecting perfection. I'm not expecting 80 hours of practice, but I want the time that's spent there to be extremely clear in what they want to achieve. I, of course, get super excited about the positives of flow, right? We're playing our best, we're doing our best. Yet there's the other side, which is what gets in the way of it. And there's a long list. I'm giving you a snippet of some of them. But flow blockers could either be items that don't allow us to be in the present moment, don't allow us to believe I have the skills, or it can also pull us out of flow. And we've mentioned a couple of these things already. I mean, mindset in and of itself could take me out of it. And do I believe that I can get better? Do I believe I can have a great round of golf today? I talk a lot about intentions. My intention today is to show up in a flow state, is to be focused, is to love what I'm doing, be in a gratitude mindset, being grateful for the opportunity to go play this tournament. That has been a key indicator in the last few years is the idea of gratitude. During the pandemic at the start, I had a lot of college players who were lost. In their words, they had nothing to play for because there was no tournaments. That's extrinsic reasons, by the way. And once they got back to the golf course, they all came back to me. 100% of them came back to me and say, Rick, I forgot how much I love this game. I am so grateful for the opportunity. And it's like, wow. Let's anchor that because later on when you're playing all these tournaments and you want to throw your clubs in the lake, I want you to remember that gratitude is a very, very important concept and it's a skill. So let's keep teaching and coaching how grateful we are to be able to play this great game and to be able to share it with others. Now we have distractions, right? Distractions can be internal, it could be self-talk, too many swing thoughts, it could be external, playing partners, pace of play, weather, tons of distractions out there. Clarity, okay? Clear goals, but if they're ambiguous or if I'm focusing on what I don't want, I'm not clear in that moment. Clarity is power. Motivation, talked about briefly, your motive to take action. What are you bringing to that? What's the energy and the spirit you want to bring to that? Burnout. Unfortunately, that happens a lot. A lot of juniors and college players that I've worked with, they come to me kind of as a last resort at times because they're burned out. They put too much extrinsic pressure on themselves. There might be parents, there may be other things that have taken the joy out of playing. Time. It's a big one. It's even with our regular players who have full-time jobs and they have families and they're fortunate maybe to play golf a couple times a month, time becomes a squeeze on them to be able to focus on the present moment because they're always thinking about something else. Exhaustion, okay, we need energy, right? So we got to take care of ourselves physically and mentally to be able to keep on coming day in and day out. Stress, certainly, especially in the pandemic in the last year, we've seen mental health issues skyrocket. Be able to have coping mechanisms for that is very, very important. Overwhelm, big part, that's part of even burnout and time. And then the last one is self-sabotage. Unfortunately, I have players that have limiting beliefs. They get to that point where they're about to get to that next level and they pull back. They don't believe they actually either deserve it or they're good enough. We have comfort zone issues, and unfortunately that gets in the way. So again, as much as I love talking about the positive and be focused and all this, we have to deal with the interferences that do occur, and we have to have strategies for that. Because the opposite of flow is fear, okay? Fear is what we don't want. And fear can be a mechanism at first to wake us up, but if we stay in fear, unfortunately, we're never going to be in a flow state. So I'm going to shift a little bit now from flow state to the relationship that I've had with Colin Morikawa, which I am extremely grateful for. And throughout the years, I've been with him since he's 8 years old, I believe we did a great job of working together literally as a team with his parents involved too. And we did things maybe a little different than other coaches. So I was fortunate, the two facilities I was coaching at that time, Shoal Canyon Golf Course in Glendale, California, which was a public facility, nice driving range, 18-hole executive golf course. They allowed me to take students out on the golf course. And then for about a 5-year period, I was at a small country club called Chevy Chase Country Club, also in the Glendale area. And it was just a big playground. I could just hop in a cart, go out there and give playing lessons all day. And it really helped me as a coach. And I found early on that was my coaching philosophy. I still believe I'm a very good swing instructor. I do know the mechanics of the golf swing quite well. Yet there was always a disconnect for me is why wasn't a player playing to the ability I thought they could? And what I found early on in my career, it wasn't because their mechanics were off. It's where they didn't know how to play the game of golf, which requires strategies, decision-making, situational awareness, being able to focus, being able to make decisions based on my own skill set. That's what I enjoy doing. And so that's what I did with Colin. We were able to once a week for pretty much 10 years be on a golf course, him, his dad, and myself, and got to hit a lot of different golf shots. And one of the things that I started to institute was kind of this three-ball challenge idea. Is I would put him in a different situation. Let's say it's just off the green, light rough, 20 yards away. And I would have him execute the first shot, and he makes the decision. He gets to go through the whole pre-shot routine. Once he hits the shot, he learns. And then I just simply ask you, get another shot. Would you have done anything differently? Different club choice, different way to set up, different trajectory you want to hit. And then he could make his second decision based on that. But then the third ball was my option. Hey, now that you've hit those two, how about if you did this? How about if you put the 60-degree back in stance and put more weight on your left foot, and we could, and that could help with the angle of attack. And now what we were doing is I wasn't instructing him, you have to do it this way. We would bounce ideas off, and then he was a sponge for learning. He was curious. And what a key part of flow is when we're in flow, our self-critical voice shuts off. We're not beating ourselves up anymore. A flow is also about something called pattern recognition, which is at the core of my coaching philosophy. When you're in flow, you can take in information in the present moment, filter it through, and be extremely accurate with that. So part of my philosophy with playing lessons was if I can put Colin or all the other juniors that I did this with in as many different situations as possible, they make mistakes, because they are, and they can learn quickly, they can recognize that pattern in the future, and they're not going to make the mistake in a tournament. That's part of my coaching philosophy that back then was certainly about learning. It was about a feedback loop that I hit a shot, I learn, make adjustment, and we make adjustment in real time. But I wasn't going to be the type who just told somebody how to do it, which I think cuts off their creativity and their own problem-solving ability. It was easy the first few years as a coach to just instruct and just tell people information. I made that mistake. Now I want to ask good questions. Now I want to learn from my player as much as hopefully they're learning from me. So this gets into this idea of growth mindset. I want to learn, and Colin definitely wanted to learn. His father was there every single lesson. His father was supportive, asked good questions, and was there to simply say, hey, when you're not with Colin, I just want to remind Colin of some of the things you guys worked on. He never interfered. He never debated me. He never said, why didn't Colin win last tournament? We never had this conversation. We were in it for the long-term development. And so again, extremely fortunate that I had a young boy at the time, now a young man, who was curious, who had a growth mindset, who was competitive, who wanted to be out there and just loved the game of golf. And then you put that with the passion that I bring to the coaching with him and his parent system and all that stuff, is that it was a great recipe. And extremely, again, grateful that this journey has continued. So when we look at now what he has accomplished, it's interesting because, again, he's going in U.S. kids tournaments from age 8, 9, 10. Okay, he won a couple at the local level, okay? But I think as he's 12, 13, 14, nobody would say he's going to be the next Tiger Woods or next anybody. He was a good young player. Yet something interesting happened when he was about 16 years old. Started to physically mature a little bit more, and he played in the Junior Western Championship, and he won it. And at that time, I think it, in his own mindset, opened up like, wow, I can play at the national level junior-wise. And why I bring that up is that I have a good friend, his name is Chris Smeal. He runs a Future Champions Tour, which is based in San Diego area. And he texted me about a month ago saying, hey, I found that Colin played in one of my tournaments when he was 13 years old. And he shows me a screenshot of it. And I think there was 40 players in this 13 to 14 age group. And Colin was 21st and shot 22 over par for 2 rounds. 13-year-old, 22 over. Now, most parents are freaking out. Oh my gosh, how he's doing this, Rick, you got to fix this. I don't even remember that tournament. Okay. But I'm sure we talked about it. And I'm sure we learned from it. And I'm sure we moved on. But it wasn't about short-term fixes. It wasn't about, oh my gosh, from the parents, he's not ranked in the top 10, So I'm extremely fortunate that his parents and Colin looked at it from a long-term development standpoint. Once he won that Junior Western, the floodgates opened for him, I think, mentally. He was extremely confident. He knew he could be at the higher level. He never won an AJGA event, by the way. So again, tell those parents, you don't have to win an AJGA event to be an elite player. He's been on international teams. He's won top amateur events. He almost won it's Korn Ferry now, but a web.com event as an amateur. What I'm so proud of him is he stayed 4 years at Cal Berkeley with a business degree from the School of Haas, which is elite. So he's a great young man who pushes himself all the time. He knew once he got on the PGA Tour, he was going to be given some opportunities. He was going to give us some sponsors exemptions. Our goal, we talked a year before he turned pro, was how do we get him in that next 12-month cycle to be ready for those sponsors exemptions. We went through all the equipment, we went through all the agents, so we had physical trainer, we had everything built in a year beforehand, so there wasn't change when he did turn pro. And I think the other part of when he has gone through this cycle is he is, again, always opening to learning. Now, I haven't updated this, but he is now 4th in the world. And of course, he just WGC event. And so when you see this, is that this progression, he has gotten better every single year, and the little things add up. I think part of working with Colin, and it really came to light this past week. I saw Colin in Riviera for the LA Genesis tournament, and that's where the first time he debuted the new saw grip that he was working with. And at the start of that week, I looked at it. His caddy, who's fantastic, JJ, looked at it and we go, wow, that putter's moving through really, really well. And he was open to it after speaking with Mark O'Meara at a club that they are both at in Las Vegas. He asked Mark O'Meara about his philosophy on putting. Why did you use this grip? He's curious. Okay. And Colin's very good at taking information in, filtering what's useful, what's not, and then being able to say, okay, let me try this. And he tried it and he says, Rick, it feels good. I go, great. It looks good. The ball's starting on line. We checked everything, and he had a decent couple first days with it at Riviera, and he had about as bad as you could have Sunday. I think he lost 6 strokes gained on Sunday putting. So now what do? He's made a grip change, and afterwards we simply said, how many putts did you start on your line? He said, 17 of the 18. I only had 1 poor putt. I go, great. So we're going to stick with it, right? He goes, yeah. And so he didn't let one horrible round of putting performance based on data stats deter him from something he felt he was comfortable with and that he just needed more repetitions. So this week he now goes to Florida. He's now on Bermuda. And he was able to keep going, man, I've never felt this good over a putt before. I'm so comfortable. And once he started making a few, obviously you saw he made a lot. So he wasn't deterring just because stats say you're putting better or anything like that. He's very good at knowing his game. And so that's part of what I love about Colin and some of the other players I work with is I want them to take ownership of their game. So part of that is this idea of locus of control. What is in your control? And then if something's out of your control, what is your response to it, right? So we get a lot of junior golfers, their response to who they playing with, playing partners, pace of play, type of course. I go, some of that stuff's completely out of your control, except your attitude towards it. He was very, very good at being able to have that attitude of just controlling what was in front of him. Always we have this constant feedback loop. How can we learn, okay, to make it better? And learn from what we do it well. We use something called a flow recall trigger, which is our ability to recall past success, bring it into the present moment. When he hit that awesome golf shot on the 16th hole at Harding Park for the PGA Championship, he recalled a month before that, the 14th tee shot at Muirfield Village when he won the Workday Championship. It was a reachable par 4, which had similar characteristics to it, and he hit 3 great drives that week. He was just recalling what he had already done well. So we look at ways to say, let's keep celebrating the great shots. Let's learn from those. Let's apply those in our routines. And then this past week, one of our goals, it's actually been our goal since the start of the year, was to get back to a calm, focused state that he had at the PGA. I mean, I've learned a lot as being a coach, and one thing that I did not do well after he won the PGA was I became a little bit complacent and I was on cloud 9, I will admit it. And he has admitted in some of the media interviews that he wasn't as focused after the PGA. He actually achieved his goals. He wanted to win 2 events in that season. He won the 2 events. And I did not do a good enough job of keeping him focused for the rest of that fall. And we learned from that. And after we sat down after the Masters and we planned out what the next goals are going to be. And we're going to now check in with each other every 3 months, specifically for goal setting, specifically for what we need to do. Even though I see him in person every other week, we wanted to make sure that we had a clear plan moving forward. So the thing that he's also improved, that I have improved on as a coach, is preparation. He has a wonderful caddy, JJ Jakovic, who used to be Ryan Moore's caddy. So he had plenty of experience. He came in, he's a very good communicator. He's a very even keel. He brought us a level of preparation to see golf courses quickly and learn from them quickly that we could have had a big learning curve. But with his expertise, we were able to really bring together good game plans week in and week out. So my last little thing here is about the future of golf instruction. I'm not going to get here on a podium and talk too much about this. I am biased on a few things. I put that out there right now. And I think what's awesome about golf is with technology, we get to learn more and more about human performance. And I think certainly with what Bryson DeChambeau has done and some other players, that they're pushing limits in speed. They're pushing limits in physicality of the game. And I think that's awesome. We still need to get the ball in the hole. We still need to think through this. I think the golf is a wonderful sport. You saw it this past week on this type of golf course that you could not overpower it. You had to think. You had to have good strategy. You had to commit to your shots. I love that about golf. I love the variability about it. So I believe mental game skills are going to be more and more in demand, actually, because I think people are swimming in a lot of technology right now and they don't know how to play the game. I have a lot of college players who are obsessed with their TrackMan numbers and that I ask them to hit a low cut and they don't know how to hit it. So I want us to get back to playing the game and coaching the game of golf. And so I think that doing playing lessons, stuff like that is actually a great benefit for us as coaches, is our ability to get our players out on the golf course, interact with them, give them some tips on how to play better, and they're going to go, wow, this was a cool experience. This is much different than being on the range. And I think the last part where I'm excited is the mental game is going to consistently now be more measurable. We have wonderful tools already that I use, Focus Band, Muse, heart rate variability training. We're going to be getting into some virtual reality here in the next few years, which is going to be pretty cool. So I'm excited about what golf has to offer. I'm extremely grateful for being able to be in this industry and calling myself PGA coach. And not only with Colin, but all the hundreds and hundreds of students that I've had throughout the years, to be able to learn from them and to be able to do something that I love. So I really appreciate everybody in hearing what I wanted to share today. I certainly would love we'll have some questions now, but if we don't get to your question, if you want to reach out to me, here's my contact information, and would love to continue the conversation. But again, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, Ted, thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate your time this morning. For all of our attendees, we're going to open up the floor here for the next couple of minutes to question and answer portion. Currently, if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see the chat bubble there. Please feel free to submit a couple of questions if you have any, or if you would like to, you can also email me at sarcher@pgahq.com. Rick, right now we don't have any questions coming in. So I'll kind of ask one. What do you kind of think the future of the mental game is? Do you see it taking a different turn as we move into the future?
Definitely. I alluded to virtual reality. So my son has one of those Oculus sets, right? And so we did boxing with it, right? There's a Rocky type of thing on there, right? And it was really cool because it was pretty darn lifelike. And so what I've heard through some of the research in sports psychology is now we can use the virtual reality and then put on heart rate monitors, put on things. So put people in stressful situations that are not real, but they imagine that they're real. And we can actually do some of our strategies based on that type of environment. So we actually don't have to be on a golf course, but we can put them on a hole that's hitting over water, test their breathing rates, test their heart rates, and then be able to give them in real time things that could help monitor that. So I'm excited about that. I think all the other analytics we have out there is going to help reinforce that. It's like if we have TrackMan for the mind, right? I mean, we now know how somebody's thinking. That's where we're going to be going here, I think, in the next 5 years.
Absolutely. We just had one come in here. How do you and Colin use technology in tournament preparation?
Very little. So he does own a TrackMan. We have used TrackMan twice ever just to look at swing dynamic stuff. He uses TrackMan every Tuesday afternoon. We see how far his balls are flying. So a quick thing, when he won the PGA Championship, the weather that week was about 58 degrees, cloudy, foggy. He was hitting the ball approximately 6 yards shorter than he did the week before in Tennessee. So we knew that on Tuesday afternoon, and we had planned for that. And every Tuesday, him and his caddy are writing down carry distances with all his clubs through TrackMan. He uses TrackMan a lot for wedge distances now, but we do not use it for path, club face relationship, or anything like that. We never have. I have had him checked out in the past with 3D vests and force plates, stuff like that, to make sure that we were staying efficient with his movements. But we, I guess, are a little bit old school. We see a ball flight and go, oh, it's overcutting. Okay, club face a little open. So we don't get bogged down into technology.
Very good, very good. The next one here, what's the best phrase to remind the student to get into and stay in the flow state for a longer period of time?
I think you said phrase. I ask questions to help drive focus in the present moment. So it could be, tell me a little bit about this lie. How is that lie going to affect the shot? Do you have to do anything differently with ball position? Where's the wind coming from? Questions can pose where we pay attention to. So I do a lot based on pre-shot routine of paying attention to the environment through questions. And then it could be a recall trigger. When was the last time you hit a great golf shot, right? Even that question, now they have to go in their memory and they're thinking only about positive stuff. Then I would go, how did you feel? Oh, wow, I felt calm. How did you breathe? Now I'm getting them into a state through the flow recall. But I use present-based questions. I use past memories. Making sure the exhale is more than the inhale helps people get into more of what we call a parasympathetic response. So there's different tools, but there's one simple that I use is, what's a good shot look like here, right? So the clarity of what you want is going to come from that answer. What's a good shot look like here? Well, Rick, I'm going to hit a 3/4 7 iron, started 15 feet left of the hole with a mid trajectory. It's going to land at 158, and now we have clarity. So ask good questions. You'll stay focused in the present moment.
Very good, very good. Next one in here, for a facility that doesn't have a driving range, what are your thoughts about simulators to play and relate numbers to results?
Love it. I was fortunate before the pandemic to utilize a simulator inside, and what I loved about it was not the TrackMan numbers, but I could simulate different strategies. So for instance, I had Colin in there. This is a year and a half ago, and we were getting ready to go to Hawaii, and we could actually put him on the simulator on the golf course he was going to play and change wind conditions. So we had him at Kapalua, and I had winds going at 25 miles an hour that were going to be variables, and then we had to think about how the ball was going to get affected. So I love playing with some of these simulators. I think they're really cool to be able to put people in different situations and have them think through it.
Excellent, excellent. Do you ever focus on positive self-talk?
Oh, all the time. And I use the idea of reframing more than I'd say positive self-talk. Sometimes being neutral is fine, okay? And sometimes me saying that there's water hazard over there, that's true, okay? And yet how I interpret that is what we call the reframing part of it. So positive self-talk certainly can help. Yet sometimes if I said, hey, I want you to think you're the greatest putter of all time, if I told Colin that a few weeks ago, he'd look at me like, what are you talking about, Rick? The stats say I'm not. He believes he's a very good putter, but not the greatest. So we have to put it in perspective is that, your subconscious, we certainly can do things to help retrain it and to create new belief systems. But I look for more of how can I look at this situation in a way that's neutral or empowering. So I use cognitive reframing, looking at something a little bit different way. But I think positive self-talk is a fantastic way to shift people's focus and change their belief systems.
Every student will have different goals, but is there a generic app to help with goal setting and accountability?
Great question. You're right. Everybody has different goals. I also want to know why they want those goals. So that's why I talk motivation is why are they pursuing those goals, I think is a key component. I don't use a ton of the apps that are out there. A lot of the students I work with, either on college teams, they're already in an app or, and then I have to kind of go with that. The accountability part's the interesting part. That's back to motivation. I can tell somebody all day long, do something, but they're the ones who have to be responsible for that. And so that's why, like I said, every Sunday I'll have my players email me their practice for the week. honestly, I don't look at it that much. But the accountability is that you said you were going to email to me. Let's see if you do it or not. And I have worksheets that they do and stuff like that. It's just doing the action. It doesn't have to be done perfectly. So I know that's not exactly the answer probably you want, but I want them to be the ones who can't wait to share with me their practice. They can't wait to share with their goals with me, not me trying to pry it out of them.
Certainly, certainly. Any books that you would suggest for coaches, of course, other than Golf: The Ultimate Mind Game?
There you go. Well, the new book by Stephen Kotler, The Art of the Impossible, I think is a fantastic book. It gives a pretty deep dive on flow states. Anything from Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, his first book, Flow: The Optimal Performance, is fantastic. And one book that meant a lot to me that's a little bit off the beaten path is a book by Dr. Joe Dispenza called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, which was a lot about how to rewire neuroplasticity, learn things more from a behavioral standpoint. And it gets into meditations, it gets into visualization stuff, but it has nothing to do with golf. But those would be kind of the three ones to start with.
Excellent, excellent. And then this may be our last one here, but what are the specific steps that you and Colin are taking to get to number one?
Yes, great. I think what we've always said is that our preparation week to week needs to be the same. So when he won the PGA championship, that preparation was exactly the same as 3 weeks before, as 6 weeks before. We don't get to a major championship site 1 or 2 days early or anything like that. His goal has always been to win that week. And we might as well do the same things every week to do that and not blow one thing out of proportion. Back to the goals, we certainly get to look at stats. We get a very, very deep dive. But I take his and his caddy JJ, I take their opinion over as I look at stats. So I'll give you the example, the putting at Riviera statistically looked awful, yet he said, wow, we're going somewhere with this. This feels good. And JJ said, yeah, this ball's starting well, right? So we have to do a lot of feedback that is not all based on data. Our goals moving forward is it's going to be the first PGA Tour season truly that he's going to play courses now for the second time, which is nice. And we're going to have an actual schedule. So I think we've improved our ability for him to recover, how he travels. Mechanics, play to your strengths, right? He's a great iron player. You saw this also with his chipping. He wasn't afraid to ask Paul Azinger about some ways to improve his chipping off of Bermuda. We've gotten very detailed on where are those little missteps happening. And sometimes it's environmental that we have to learn. Sometimes it's old habits. So we're always, every week, almost every round, by the way, we're assessing how we can do the little things better.
Very good, very good. I think we got time for one more here. Can you share Colin's current goals?
Well, he wants to be the number one player in the world. He wants to be on the Ryder Cup team. He wants to be on the Olympics team this year. I won't tell you exactly how many wins he wants to have this year, but it's more than one. So we still have some work to do. And I think it's the other part of the goal is his idea of growth mindset. He always wants to be learning. He always wants to be getting better at those small incremental changes. Some of them are certainly performance-based, of wanting to be on certain teams, wanting to win certain tournaments, which helps motivate him. Yet I think at the heart of it, he's very intrinsically motivated. He loves the game of golf. He's passionate about. He loves playing more than he loves practicing, by the way. His practice is let's hit 50 balls and then let's go play. He still has that love of being out there trying different golf shots.
Excellent. Well, Rick, on behalf of the Southern Texas PGA, our 800 PGA members and associates, thank you so much for your time this morning and coming in and sharing some of your knowledge and your experiences with Colin. I think I speak on everyone's behalf on this call when I say it's been a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Have a wonderful week. Thank you.
You too.
Just a reminder for all of our attendees today to make sure to tag us on social media and show how you're enjoying today's education seminar. Our next speaker is Ted Eliterio, Vice President of Player Development for the National Golf Foundation and past Director of Golf Program Development for the PGA of America. Ted is a leading expert in the areas of player and business development in golf and travels the globe conducting workshops on how to grow business and revenue. He leads NGF's Welcome to Golf initiative, which focuses on growing adult golf participation by creating and training leaders in the golf industry. Please enjoy his TED presentation, and remember to submit any questions for the end via the chat feature or via email to me. Ted, thank you.
Great, thank you. Well, hey, everybody, thank you so much for this opportunity. And wow, what a tough act to follow from Rick. And I've just been blessed knowing Rick for so long. And, the stories that he tells, and I'm always riveted by them. And I can remember many times that we were just like sponges. We just wanted to absorb everything we possibly could to be the best instructors that we could be and the best players that we could be. And, I knew Rick from as a young man, and he always had a goal and a vision of where he wanted to take his career, and he's succeeding in that. And I know there's still so many great things for Rick coming up. I recall one time that I think we were playing in a tournament, and afterwards I don't think either of us played really well, but we sat down and we're recapturing our shots, and I was saying like, and so on this one I really sculled the shot, or I hit a chunk in that, and then I 3-putted on number 17, and that's the first time I actually heard him say, you know what, like, maybe we need to change our mindset a little bit. Instead of recalling all the bad shots that we do all the time, how about we take a different approach and we actually start recalling all the good shots, And that was difficult to do, but we caught each other whenever we would want to go to the negative and self-correct, and it definitely helped me, And then Rick was always fascinated with the golf mind and how that works in performance. And, I was always trying to but what about the lower power package accumulators? What are they doing this way, And he would always keep me in check. So great time, good friend, wonderful family, love the guy. And just so happy that I get a chance to be on the same screen with him. So moving on, a little bit about me. I am a PGA golf professional. I worked for the PGA of America for 6 years. Recently, I made a career change I'll tell you in a little bit about. But with the PGA, I got to travel around the country and conduct workshops. And matter of fact, the third panel here was in Houston during one of the education seminars, a full-day seminar that I got to participate in. And in addition to that, you may have seen me. I've done a lot of the ADM work that we see, the athletic development model, about how to coach kids from an early age and not really sports specialize until they get a little bit older, and then help them go in their correct path should they choose to want to go that way. So I had a blast doing that and recording a lot of the videos. And for those of you that had to endure 3 hours of me going through the ADM certification, let me apologize in advance. But I had a blast doing it. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people don't know is a week after I needed knee surgery, I had a meniscus tear. And so when you see me here, I'm actually wearing shorts and a big honking brace, and I was in a lot of pain. And in between breaks, I'd have to sit down. But I would do it again all over again. So a little bit moving on, got to speak at the keynotes and do some things. And as a result of that, I started learning a lot about the business of golf, not just like how to teach golf, but what does it really mean to help grow the game of golf? And it was about that time a year ago that I started thinking about getting into a different direction. And it just happened to be that Dr. Joe Bettis, the CEO for the National Golf Foundation, and I, we sat down and had lunch one day. We hadn't seen each other for years. And we just started chatting, and he told me about this program that he was thinking of doing called Welcome to Golf. And I'll talk a little bit about it later on, so I'll just keep that on the burner for now. But it really made me think, like, what are we doing as an organization, as PGA members, to really grow the game of golf that's not so stuck just in the teaching of golf, but actually creating students? And what I started noticing working for the NGF is how many media inquiries we get like every single day. And I am talking like a lot. And it's hard for us because once the media gets a piece of information, they have a tendency to put a spin on it, a twist on it. And like I was telling you about, Rick and I, we committed to like talking about the good points of our golf games. The media was like Ted Eliterio before that happened, is they would like to focus on the negative. They always ask us like, yeah, well, how many golf courses are failing? How many that, And that's why we see articles like this. Golf is back in the Olympics. Too bad no one plays it anymore. Or this. Death watch. How much longer can golf survive? I mean, these sound more like movies than actually about golf, right? Got this one, America's golf courses are burning. Then another one here, amid golf's decline, towns must decide what to do with the land. And it was at this point that when you read all these, and I used to be like there before NGF, is like you get this picture like, golf isn't like a pretty bad state, isn't it? And if I was to ask you in 2019, just before pandemic, how many golfers there were in the United States, the answer was 24.3 million. But if I was to ask you how many golf courses opened in the United States that same year, you may or may not know, but here's the answer: 9. That same year, if I was to ask you, well, how many golf courses closed, and I was to say over or under, and there isn't a lot of room for under, so chances are you know it's going to be over. But did you know that in 2019, we had more golf closures than any time in the history of the United States when it came to golf closures or openings? So going through all this, there's a trend. We like to talk about it being in a corrective state, that it was an oversupply of golf courses and we had to work on bringing them back down. And you can see that the trend here is since about 2005, 2006, that has been the case. The red indicates that there's more 18-hole equivalents. And when I speak about 18-hole equivalents, one 18-hole golf course is 18 holes. 2 9-hole golf courses comprise an 18-hole equivalent. And that's how we measure it. The number of holes divided by 18, that's how we come up with these numbers. And when we look at 2019, like I said, it was record-setting. Even though you see 18-hole equivalents being 246, we think the number of golf closures was actually closer to 300, because in that number, there are a lot of 9-hole golf courses that just didn't make it. But then 220 came around, pandemic hit us, and the story was a little better. Still more golf courses closed than have opened, but it was 169. So there you have it. I mean, I don't have a lot else to say other than the fact that 15 years prior to the golf closure starting to happen, we actually added 4,567 golf courses to the United States. And then the 15 years starting today backwards, we actually lost 1,645 golf courses. About it. Does anybody have any questions? I'm just kidding. But here's the other side that we often don't see. Do you know that there's more golf courses in the United States than there are Starbucks? Or for that matter, McDonald's, or movie theaters, or Walmart, and it can go on and on. There's more than Taco Bell's, and there's more than ski resorts, and there's more than, there's a lot of golf courses in the United States for sure, and we're doing okay. When you look at the numbers up to 2019, I'll bring it a little bit further, that we've been riding the wave where there's about 24 million, roughly, give or take a few 100,000 golfers in the United States that play golf on golf courses. And as you can see here, the red that was coming around 2010 is about the time that we started really looking at alternative facilities like Topgolf, off-course exclusive type facilities. And we add those in there, the number that they're growing at versus us being stable in the golf industry with the number that are at our golf courses really shows an incline in the amount of golfers in the United States. So in 2019, combine the two together, and we have 34.2 million golfers in the U.S. And if I was to go on further than that, if you were to take the total U.S. golf population in millions at 24.8, and you combine that 24.3 million people actually visited those off-property facilities as well, and there were some that did both, and that's why the number is so high. But we have 36.9 million golfers in the U.S. as of last year. And the amazing part to me is talk about opportunity, that according to our research, there's 12.1 million people that have visited places like Topgolf or indoor swing simulators or just standalone driving range and what have you that have never been on a golf course before. And that's like pretty cool because, again, to me, that smells of opportunity for all of us. When I think about it and you look at other sports, recreation sports that are around the U.S. now, and you look at the student or the participant ratio to the population, golf is at its highest. It's right there with basketball. And then comes tennis, and then baseball and softball and soccer and skiing. And I'm just going to pause here for a moment. Does anybody know what the up-and-coming sport or recreational activity seems to be happening in the U.S.? It's just going gangbusters. Second, here's the answer to that. Yeah, pickleball, right? And even that, as much as we hear a lot about it, it's only that 1 out of every 100 people play pickleball. I don't know about you, when I look at this image, what disturbs me the most is that guy's ankle on his rear foot. He's like contorted in an unnatural position. I doubt he's going to be playing very long. But let's go a little bit further, and I'm going to, give you some stats and something to chew on. In 2020, we finished with almost 502 million rounds, considering the fact that up until April, we were minus 20 million rounds of what we did the year prior to in 2019. And that was the most since 2006, the biggest year-over-year increase since 1997, the year Tiger won his first major. In addition to that, the number of junior golfers ages 6 to 17 jumped by 630,000, which is a year-over-year increase of 24%. That was the largest since, you got it, 1997 when Tiger Woods won his major. In addition to that, the number of beginners, those who played on a golf course for the first time ever, and the largest jump on record with 20%, with 570,000 more newcomers than the year before. In total, there were a record 3 million beginners in 2020. Now, just to put that in kind of perspective, every year prior to 2020, at its peak, we had about 2.5 million newcomers try the game of golf for the first time. And that's been the case for at least 10 years prior to. The amazing part, though, is if that's the case, then we're not doing a really good job at holding these newcomers, because the golfing population has just always stayed around 24 million. And if we're talking about adding 2.5 million and now 3 million in 2020, where are all these people going? What's happening to them? Why are we not growing as a sport and as a recreational activity? This I got for you. The number of female golfers rose by almost 500,000, 450,000, eclipsing 6 million in total for the first time since 2007. And a little bit of more of a local thing for all of you. Texas is fourth nationally in the number of golf courses and golf facilities, with 834 courses at 750 facilities, behind only Florida, California, and Michigan. So you guys are chasing us. I'm in Florida right now. And something that I didn't want to see, but yes, great state of Texas has now surpassed Florida in the number of golfers and is now second only to California with over 1.72 million. And Florida checks in at about 1.7 million. So you guys got us beat by a good couple 100,000. But I put this slide up here because it's factory and it's factory workers. And what concerns me, seeing this data and being a golf professional and having a passion to helping PGA members and coaches and businesses and golf courses in general succeed, I think we get a little bit of what I call the factory worker mentality, meaning that we're experiencing this massive success in 2020. More golfers than ever, more juniors, more youth, more beginners, more women. And yet we're just kind of like doing the same stuff that we did before. We open up our golf shops, we count the registered drawer, we check people in all day, we close the golf shop at night, count the registered drawer, and then we do it the same thing over and over. That kind of factory mentality. As instructors, maybe our lesson books are filling up, we arrive in the morning, we get everything set up, we start teaching lessons on the hour, whatever it is, and then at the end, we pack everything up, we go home, only to do the same thing again the next day. How do we get out of this factory worker mentality? And it's really important that we do and recognize it, because I was doing a section workshop for the North Florida PGA about two months ago, and one of the participants said, like, hey, when is golf going to return to normal? And my thought immediately was, like, really? Like, you wanted to return to normal like it was? You wanted to have a pivotal year of more golf course 18-hole equivalents closing in 2019 than ever before? Like that kind of normal? Like, is that what we're doing? Is it like the normal, like we're not increasing 24 million golfers, we're just staying flat, like that kind of normal, right? So it got me thinking, like, there's got to be something bigger and better here. And as a result of that, looking back at our research, we find that there's what we call this bubble that happened around like 2000-ish to about 2009, 10-ish, right around there. And the bubble is that it's the time that Tiger was at his peak, that he was like a contender in every single thing that he entered, the time when we would hear other pros say, like, we're just playing for second place if Tiger's in the field. And as a result of that, the golfing population drove drastically up to where we had 30.6 million golfers in the U.S. And that's not top golf driving ranges. These are like on-course players. But the interesting thing was that if you see the red line down below, the rounds per golf index was low. As a matter of fact, it was at its lowest. And how could that possibly be that we had more golfers in the U.S., but they were playing less golf? And when we pondered that question and looked over, we realized that, first of all, the reason was that a lot of people saw this guy, Tiger Woods, and he was cool, and he was sexy, and he was sponsored by Nike, and he was destroying everybody. And you could be in a third world country, and you would know the name Tiger Woods. And everybody wanted to be like Tiger Woods, and everybody wanted their kids to be like Tiger Woods, and everybody had this dream and they wanted to go play. And it got people excited, and like golf was fun, and like, wow, you know, people can scream out and like, you're the man, you know. So as a result, people who've never played golf before started going to our golf facilities and wanting to try this game out because this guy Tiger was doing it, and he made it look so much fun. Only to realize, as we all know, take a beginner who's never played golf before, throw him out on a golf course, God forbid, on a Saturday morning, probably 9 o'clock tee time, gets paired up with somebody, and it is not going to be a good situation, is it? Right? The person's not going to know what to do, how to act, maybe make contact with the ball. Most of them didn't think I should go take a lesson first. I just want to play this game. And as a result, that's why that bubble exists. Even though we had more golfers, we had a lot of beginners and newbies coming to the game, trying it once or twice and saying, this is way harder than I anticipated. And the reason I go back historically to this is, could we be experiencing or about to experience another bubble? Just think about like 2020 with the pandemic, and as critical and as harsh as it was, the fact that we had more beginners going out there than ever before, 3 million to be exact. And what about these people? Are we doing the same thing we did with them back in the early 2000s, late 1990s? Are they going out there and experiencing it? And because like, well, golf is like the only thing that's open right now. There's no sports venues open. There's no like concerts I can attend. There's no outdoor activities that involves like being outdoors and getting some movement. Could we be like getting ready for another phase that's going to look like this? And this is where I implore all of you to think beyond just let's return back to normal. And how can we find ways to far exceed any expectations that we thought that we can start capturing and growing the game of golf and stabilizing the amount of closures in the United States. And more than anything is really exposing this game of golf for what it is, which is just like, it's a passion, it's a lifestyle, it's something you can play your entirety. And how do we get that same joy in people as we all experience? Well, as I'm going through this, and I started realizing again that a lot of like these golfers come into the course is just by default. We haven't changed anything in our marketing style, so to speak. We throw the same thing out there like, hey, after 5, you get free carts and BOGO dogs and all that. So there's got to be something else. And what I realize is as I surf the net is that we don't do a very good job at marketing, I think. For example, I went on the internet prior to coming on and looked at outdoor activities in Houston. I want you to look at these images. How many golf courses do you see? Page 1. Scroll down to the second page. Here's a third page. And fourth. And fifth. And sixth. And I just like, after 7, I said, you know what? It's not going anywhere. There was not one golf course listed in and around Houston as an outdoor activity. Why is that? What better activity is there to do? There was one, like, and it might have been on the 8th page, like, there was one that, and you probably all know, like, you go over a bridge and you observe bats as an outdoor activity. Bats, like, on a bridge. And that, like, is in there, and yet I couldn't find a golf course as an activity. In the newspaper business in the old days, when they used to, actually have paper newspapers and they throw them on the streets, above the fold is a term known as the front of the page of the newspaper that when it's folded in half has the most critical, most important, most exciting story of anything in the newspaper. For example, back in the days, men walk on the moon. You can see that's where the fold is. That's a pretty big headline that would probably entice somebody to open up and buy that newspaper. So in the digital world right now, we have what we call above the fold, and it's used in web development refer to the portions of a web page that are visible without further scrolling or clicking. In other words, once you land on that page, you're not to like click on anything or scroll down to see what else is on that page. It just is what it is. That's the first thing a visitor would see. And when I did type in golf courses in the area, I found that the images look like this, right? There are signature golf holes, or they're a flagstick stuck on a green. But just think about that, right? That's the extent of our marketing efforts. That's how we want to represent our golf course, that, hey, we're selling this. come on out and try it. And even if it was successful, why would I pick one of these over the other? They all kind of look the same. They all have a green and flag sticks and green grass, and some of them, yeah, a little bit cooler than the others. But there's nothing that like would be, wow. And where are all the people? Like when you go to the activities, the outside activity pages I just showed, look at this. They're showing people kayaking and playing with balloons and camping and mountain, like, but yeah, we go back to golf. Right? Why aren't we having people in our images? Cragburn in New York, amazing facility, very private, lots of history and all that. And I love this tagline because it says, where friends get together and play golf. And just for those of you that maybe have a smaller screen, let me just like zoom in on that and you can see all the friends that we're talking about, right? That's a concern of me, for me. That's a concern that like we're not really doing a good job of telling people, and especially non-golfers, what golf is really all about. And this is where misperceptions come about. They're like, well, golf is for the elite, or golf is for the rich, or you got to like dress a certain way, or whatever it is, right? And if anything, it probably like would shy somebody away if they saw this image, rather than like, wow, that looks really exciting. I need to go try that place out. So as an assignment, not now, like later on, what I like for you to do is to go to your websites on a laptop, on your phone, it doesn't matter. And don't do nothing. Just get on your website and let the first image, the wording, whatever, just strike you for what it is, as if you were a new visitor who's never been there before. And I would challenge you that if it looks anything like those flag sticks on greens, that you should probably consider doing something that might compete with those outdoor activities that we saw earlier. Because that would be like the happiest place on earth, Disney World, which is in Florida, here where I'm at. Just saying it's the happiest place on earth, and there's just nobody there on their streets. I doubt very much they would have people flocking like they do. Now, that was his son. There's a gentleman, Theodore Levitt, who's since passed away. He was a Harvard professor in leadership and management, and he was coined with saying this phrase that people don't want quarter-inch drills, they want quarter-inch holes. And when you think about that in golf, I think that pertains too. But what if we took this to a new level? Well, why do people want quarter-inch holes? Well, the reason they want quarter-inch holes might be to put a shelf on a wall. And then you have to go to the next level. Well, why would people want to put a shelf on a wall? And the reason they want to put a shelf on the wall is maybe to get all the stuff off of the ground, right? And then you have to take it one more level maybe, or more. Well, why do they need to get that stuff off the ground and put it on a shelf? And it might be because, like, I did it so I can make my wife happy, because she's always telling me, like, look at all your junk on the floor. You need to, like, pick it up and do something with it. Can't you go buy a shelving unit? So really the reason that somebody might buy a quarter-inch drill has to do with making sure that they're making their wives happy by making sure that all the junk is off the floor and up on a shelving unit. And if we take that to golf, this is what troubles me, is that when I speak to GMs and talk to them about, hey, how's business? They usually refer to business in rounds of golf or tee times. Hey, we're up 2,000 rounds of golf this first quarter, or we sold more tee times this first quarter than every time before. But that's really not what people want. That's the quarter-inch drill right there. If we have a golfer, a potential golfer here, and then we have the golf course out here, it just happens to be that tee times is the middle person or ground to get them out on that golf course. They don't want to buy tee times. They're not going home and telling their spouses and like, look, I bought a tee time. No, they want the tee time because it affords them the opportunity to get on the golf course, have an amazing experience, hang out with friends, drink a few brews, go tee it up. And that's what we should be focusing on selling, not the quarter-inch drill tee times. We should be focusing on selling the experience that looks like this. And then for those of us that sell equipment and clubs, we might think that people are buying wedges, but why are they really buying wedges, right? Here's the potential buyer. What they want is what they see on TV is like, Phil Mickelson, one hop and his spins and his sticks and whoever else and Colin and doing all this cool stuff with wedges. So that person's not buying a wedge. That person is buying the potential that it has that could create more great shots, checking up on the green, stopping near the hole, and then maybe they'll be shooting better scores and enjoying the game more. And then for those of us who are coaches, and that's my passion, we're probably not really selling lessons either. And I learned this later in life, and once I moved out to Orlando, is That's what I thought I was doing. I thought I was selling lessons, you know. It's like, hey, buy 6 for the price of 5, you know, and I got a special going here. And what I started realizing fairly quickly was that nobody really cared that they purchased a lesson from Ted Eliterio. Nobody ran home and told a significant other, like, wow, I just got lessons with Ted. Let me hold on to them. Maybe they'll be worth more money in the future. No. Their hopes were that here's the student, the golfer, is that Ted Eliterio's lessons would lead them to playing better on the golf course, having a more fun, engaging time on the golf course, hanging out with those friends and just really enjoying the day. And maybe it's the opposite, where it's like, finally got to stick it to my buddy who like beats me every single time. And because I took some lessons, the experience that I had was by far none. It was the best, right? So we're not selling tee times. We're not selling clubs and equipment. We're not selling golf lessons. We're not selling that 1/4-inch drill. What we need to do is realize that we're selling something that's much greater and much more valuable, and that is the experience that a golfer wants. And once we figure that out, what it is at your facility that a golfer wants and what makes it special, then I hope you would see that the marketing collateral and the images you use and the websites and the flyers and whatever it is would also change so that it matches that story versus buy one hot dog, get one free. After 5 p.m., the rate is this, and you get free golf carts. That's not what we want. That's not what they want. How do we know? Well, for one, and I believe this took place in the Houston area, back in my days with the PGA, we had a consultant who went and stood on the first tee before people went out and played golf and asked them, what is it you care about when you go play golf? Now, the answers that you see here are the top 10 answers that people came up with. Right, so there were many more, but these are the top 10 answers. So now we kind of know what it is that they care about. My next thing I would like to ask all of you is, what do we think that they care about? Meaning that when you look at these top 10 answers here, I would like for you to take the effort of prioritizing what you think is the top 3 answers of these 10, and in order if possible. So I'm just going to pause here for like a minute or so, let you look over the list. I'm looking for the top 3 answers that a person really cares about when they go play golf, and in order, 1, 2, and 3. You got it? Ready for the big reveal? Here it is. According to this consultant's survey of 2,700 people on the first tee, and it was a mixture of golf courses, by the way. It wasn't just resorts or privates or publics or munis or whatever. Here they are. Top 3 answers. Did you get it? Is that what you had? When I do these live workshops, the number 1 answer that most PGA professionals will put on here is length of round. By far, easily. And to this date, I've had very few, as a matter of fact, less than a handful of people that actually got these 3 in any kind of an order. So why is that? And first of all, that presents an interesting paradigm for us. And here's why. Because if we know these are the top 10 answers of what they care about, and you can look at that list, we have this thing here that most professionals and people would say, well, they want to be treated courteously. That definitely should be a top 3. Or again, the course condition, the pace of play definitely needs to be a top 3. Or like, hey, you know, everybody wants those clean and working facilities. And then, of course, hey, you want to be greeted by name and feel special and belonging status. And I agree. These 4 answers right here, I mean, they did make the top 10, so they are important. But let me go back a little bit and tell a little bit of story. Imagine that you're going to your favorite golf facility, and when you get there and you pull in, outside service staff opens your door, and you pop the trunk, and they get the clubs out, and they say, hey, I'm going to put your clubs on the cart. It's going to be down by the staging area. The golf shop's over there. Why don't you go ahead and check in, and we'll have some water and some range balls for you and get ready to go. So you go to the golf shop now, and you check in, and you're greeted by name, and you're made to feel special, and you're treated courteously, and everything looks very clean, and the atmosphere is just really, really nice. And they tell you, like, hey, you're all set. We checked you in. If you want, go ahead and hit some balls. You still have some time. There should be balls and water in your cart. So you go to the golf cart, and sure enough, just like they said, there's balls in the back and water, and you go out and you warm up. You got about 5 minutes till tee time. You go to the first tee, and you're greeted again by courtesy, and they said, hey, you're glad to have you here. We're really excited. By the way, you'll be following the Miller Group, and you'll be up next when the time is up. Enjoy your day. Well, that's like really, really good experience. And then you're done the round, and you're done, and they clean your clubs, and they talk to you about your round of golf and how to go, and they either let you take your clubs to the car or they don't, but either way, somehow they'll get the clubs to you, and you have a great experience. Now, I'm going to take that scenario, and I'm going to turn it into a restaurant scenario. Imagine now that you're going to your favorite restaurant, right? So you pull up with your car, and a valet opens your door and says, thank you for coming over here. We'll take care of your car for you. By the way, that's where you'll go to check in for your reservation. And you walk up the stairs, and somebody opens up the door. Hey, thank you so much for coming today. The hostess stand will be right over there. You can check in for your reservation. And you go to the host and hostess, and they're like, yep, got you down. It's a 9 p.m. late dinner, and we're going to have so-and-so is going to take you to your table and sit. When you sit, they bring bread out, they take order your drink, and when you're ready, you order your food, and the atmosphere is amazing. You're treated courteously. You might be called by name if they had it on a reservation. And everything is just like stellar. And after the whole event, you eat your food, and you go and leave. And on the way out, the host or hostess says, thank you so much for coming. Really enjoyed having you. Hope to see you again. And the outside valet who's parked your car now opens your door for you and is taking care of your car for you, and you're off to go. Like, both of those situations would be a very, very good thing. I would go back to that golf course, and I would go back to that restaurant. But here's the thing. That if we're just talking about what we just talked about, being treated courteously, called by name, that the facility looks nice and it's clean, and I'm being respected and all that, I could easily take a golf shop staff and replace them with that restaurant staff, couldn't I? Right? I mean, it's the same thing they do. It just happens one's in a restaurant, one's in a golf course. And that's a challenge, because if that's the case, and that's all we're known for doing is that service part, then we can be easily replaced. But let me draw your attention back to here again, because these three answers are critical to what us as PGA professionals are all about, is because we're the ones who can help people improve their quality of their game, so they are hitting more good shots and less bad shots, so they are shooting better scores, and then as a result, they're having more fun with friends. And the cool thing about that is that us, only the PGA professionals, not a person at a restaurant staff, probably not the person who's even the outside service person at our facility, or the person who checks people in, can do that. And we have this opportunity right here to kind of corner the market, so to speak, right? And that's good news for us. But that's only good news if we think in these terms here of what it is that we're able to provide a facility beyond just the course condition and the pace of play and the clean and working facility. And you know where I'm going. So one thing with Welcome to Golf that I was excited about, and they brought me on board for, it was because of my experience with golf academies. I own my own, and working for the PGA and giving these business development things. They wanted me to create a program called Welcome to Golf. And the year prior to me joining NGF in 2019, they tried it. And let me just share some of the stuff that what we learned from that. For one, we realized that there's still significant and still growing opportunity back in 2019. We found, we did a survey, every year we do it, and we asked non-golfers, hey, would you be interested in learning the game of golf or trying golf? And the four answers would be none whatsoever, maybe interested, and then somewhat interested, and then very interested. And if we only took those who answered somewhat and very interested, it comes out that there's 50.6 million Americans, and I'm specifically talking about adult Americans, that have expressed that they would be somewhat or very interested in trying the game of golf. Now, to me, that is like, again, huge opportunity. And part of that is because a lot of national programs are all focused on the youth market, as well as we should be, and Welcome to Golf supports that as well. But there are a lot of them out there. And if I was to ask this audience here, what about the adult market? Who's taking care of them? Probably most of you, if not all of you, would say, oh, get golf ready. So what we found is that, hey, there's an imbalance here. Maybe we need to have a few more adult player development type programs here. And that's why we figured, let's like really focus on this area here with Welcome to Golf. And that area, by the way, is about the ages from about mid-20s to about mid-40s. It's seems that that's the peak interest of people trying and wanting to learn the game of golf. So what we did is we created some pilots. We took 13 facilities in the Denver area, and we spent a considerable amount of money on doing advertisement for these 13 facilities. And the approach that we did is that we created a website, and people can go on here, and through the website, they could be connected to one of the facilities. We put a lot of marketing collateral together, from brochures to cards to handouts. We put ads on Hulu. We had 4 different types of spots that we advertised on Hulu, and spent, a chunk of change on that. We also were featured in magazines. This one here is a very prominent magazine that's outdoorsy and what have you. It's called 528. It's located in the greater Denver area. We went through the social media. We did all the things that we felt we needed to do there. We put banner ads in any place we have for digital magazines and sidebars. And what we did is we created 8.3 million impressions of Welcome to Golf. Now, any business that generate 8.3 million impressions, you would think is like, wow, how could we possibly fail? And by the way, to get to this number of 8.3 million cost us roughly a couple $100,000, right? And this is what we got out of it. From there, 15,600 people visited our website. See how it's broken down, how they found out about it. And then from there, 544 people actually registered to want more information. They didn't even go to the facility yet. They just want more information. And we had to tease them they were going to do a prize, which we did, and we gave away from. And then of that, we had roughly 90 people that visited the 13 facilities. Now, if you can imagine spending months and doing all the things and spending a couple $100,000 to generate 90 people to visit the facilities, as all of you would know, that's not a very good return on investment. So what did we learn in 2019? Well, we learned that the latent demand is real. People are wanting to play golf. Welcome to Golf Centers need to have a champion and an educated staff. What I mean by that is when people were visiting these facilities, they kind of got the same experience as we've been doing for all these years, and it hasn't been that great. And then we found out that the market-to-market top-down approach, hey, we'll do all the work, we'll push people to your facilities. All you got to do is show up and teach them and create an experience. Wasn't working out that well either. So in 2020, we took what we learned and we decided we're going to twist it. And this is about the time I came on board. We found out in 2020, hey, the latent demand is still there. Matter of fact, it grew by 8 million plus, people that'd be interested in taking up the game of golf. But we knew that we had to change the execution of how we did it because what we tried wasn't working. This whole pushing people towards the facility to get them to sign up wasn't working. So we looked at everything and we kind of look at it as a 3-legged stool. And this is what I mean. First of all is the invite leg of the stool. And the invite is the same thing. It's the marketing. But the difference is that rather than just hanging out, hoping somebody finds a flyer, walks in our golf shop door, picks up a business card, and calls us for a lesson, it was up to these individual people that worked at Welcome to Golf Centers to now go out into their community and pull people to their facility, to tell them why golf is so great. If you work at a business, it's great for stress and relaxation, some for your employees to do afterwards, and they'll have less missed sick days or whatever, or going to hospitals and saying, hey, what a great stress relief for the doctors and admin staff, or going to schools, not just for the juniors, but hey, the teachers kind of need some place to go and hang out too, So we were pulling people in. And we did a combination of both, some pull and some push, but the primary interest was on really educating these people at the facilities to kind of fend for themselves and to take ownership of their business and find ways to pull people to their facilities. So the 3-legged stool won't stand very good if it only had one leg. It needs all 3 legs. So the next part was about introduce. How do we introduce these people once we get them to come to our facility to an amazing experience? And one way is that it's mandatory that when somebody comes to one of our Welcome to Golf Centers that they're made to feel welcome. They're greeted at the door right from the beginning, right? The expectation that they're going to become golfers more so than becoming students is going to be started right from the very first lesson. I mean, that's why they signed up. They said they're interested or someone interested, very interested or someone interested in playing golf. They didn't say in the survey, I'm somewhat interested or very interested in becoming a student, right? So we had to make sure that the expectations from the very beginning were all about them becoming golfers. And then we toured the facility. Most people don't know where to go to check in for tee times or where to change their clothes or what even a bag drop area is. So we took him around and showed him all these things. And then we had him introduced to the staff. We have the staff like talking like, here's how you make a tee time, and here's how you check in on the day of your reservation. Here's how you find like what to do with the bag drop area and where your clubs are going to go once you drop them off and these things, right? So now we're making them feel more welcoming because they start knowing what it is they need to do, which then goes to the how part. We also teach them like, hey, if you're going to get range balls, here's the machine, and probably a good idea that you put the bucket under the spit first and then put the token in versus the other way around, because it's going to be like or how many times in your facilities do you hear golf bags falling off the back of the golf carts because people don't know how to strap them in? So we wanted to show them those things as well. And then, of course, on our first lessons with Welcome to Golf, we don't take them to the putting green. And even though theoretically it might make sense, you start small and expand, putting first, then chipping, pitching, half swing, full swing. And that's like 4 or 5 weeks down the road before they're hitting full shots. So bear with me. Imagine if on the very first lesson of somebody who's never played before, you give them 9 irons, you put a ball on a 2-inch tee, you teach them a little L to L swing, and they clip that ball and it goes in the air, even if it's like 30, 40, 50 yards, they're done. They're hooked. You're going to see high fives. People are going to be saying, I think I can play this game. Coach, look, did you see that? They're going to be walking away from that facility. I can't wait to go home and tell my significant other. I can't wait to tell my friends how fun golf is. I can't wait till the next time I come back and play golf, right? Because now they know what goes on at the facility and where they should go and what they should do and how to use the range machine. And now they're actually hitting balls up in the air. Like, this golf thing might just be fun, right? So it's important that we create an experience that's what I call the new golfer experience, but also what I call the new golfer experience, meaning like we should be like giving amazing experiences to those who already come to our facilities, as well as those who have never been there and are new to our facilities. And that's how we're going to keep them coming back and not leaving the game like we've seen in the past, which brings us to the third part, which is retention. There's definitely a consumer pathway, a golfer pathway, and they start with invite, and that's where most programs do. They get people to come and take lessons, and then maybe they get them in a good introduction, like the lessons are somewhat fun and having that. That's kind of oftentimes where they stop. It doesn't go much further than the introduce part. And if it is a retention, it's usually, would you like to sign up for more lessons? I have other packages. But as golf professionals, we need to think more about not creating students, but creating golfers for our facility, which means that we need to manage the consumer pathway up as far as he or she wants to go, or as far as we are capable of taking them, right? And by doing that, that's how we keep them coming back and visiting our facilities and playing more golf and not having the same amount of people that try the game of golf for the first time leave the game of golf for the first time as well. Brings me to this word, and I know everybody hates it, but it's so true, and that is sales. Because the sales process really never ends. And here's what I mean by this. I'm not a wealthy man by any means, but I've always wanted a BMW. Just one of these things I wanted, right? And I finally, like in 2019, bought my first BMW. And I was excited. It was used, low mileage, looked beautiful, ready to go, right? I had the thing for about 2 weeks, and this odor was coming through the air conditioner. So I bring it in, 2 weeks, mind you, used car, 2 weeks. Oh, that's not covered under our warranty policy. So it's going to cost you $500, and we'll flush the lines for you and treat them and change the filters, and you should be fine. Okay, so $500 right out of the chute. I haven't made the first car payment, right? So the next time I'm driving back from the grocery store, and all of a sudden the car starts just rattling really excessively, making this god-awful noise coming from the hood, and it's barely like moving. And this is on a Saturday evening, and the dealership is closed on Sunday, so I have to wait till Monday. And somehow I managed to drive it to the facility, which may not have been a very smart move on my part, but I managed to get it to the facility. And after keeping it for a couple of weeks and having specialists come in to try to figure out what was wrong with this car, they determined that it needed a whole new engine. Now, mind you, I just had this thing for not even a month, like 3 weeks, and the thing's like needs a whole new engine. So I get the engine in, no charge, thank God, because I wouldn't have it today. And I drive home, everything seems fine. They're telling me how it's like a new car now. I'm all excited. The next day I'm backing out of my driveway, and I hear this really loud rattling noise coming from the hood. drive it over to the dealership. They like put it through tests, and they realize apparently that when they put the engine in, they forgot to put some kind of buffer on the sides, and what was happening was the engine, when it was vibrating, was hitting the side of the car. I don't even know anymore. So they fixed it, no charge, great. About a month later, the smell comes back. I bring it into the dealer. Yeah, you live in a humid area. That's probably going to be an ongoing thing for you. It's going to cost you $500 for us to treat the lines on. So why do I say the sale continues? Because I am telling all of you this. Like, I am very questionable whether I'd ever buy another BMW again based on the experience I had just early on. Now, the car's been running pretty decent. The smell is still coming back. Like, I don't know if something died in there or what, but it's the same thing with golfers. If you take them and you introduce them and you bring them to the facility and you show them an amazing lesson experience, and then afterwards you just leave them on their own, the sale process doesn't stop. They're going to either make a decision like, wow, well, nobody's helping me, so I'm done with this. Or if you're really good at what you do, you would stay in constant communication with these people, and you would develop things like leagues, newcomer leagues, and newcomer tournaments that are once a month, and events, and stuff like fashion shows, and having like a sports psychologist like Rick coming to your place and talking to these people and getting them engaged, and like showing them that like golf is like so much more than just like the lessons and then you're done and you're on your own. So I think every coach should get over like the fear of asking this and should ask, hey, so when are you playing next? To open up some dialogue about the potential of getting students to get out there on the golf course, because that's why they signed up for lessons, the quarter-inch drill, right? And then we want them to spend more money on equipment, clothing, and memberships at your golf facility. How can you work that into your lesson program? And we want them to spend more F&B and come to your events at your facility. How can you work that into your lesson program? It might be as simple as like, oh, by the way, I just had lunch, and I had the most incredible Philly cheesesteak sandwich I've ever had. You got to try it out after your lesson. I'm telling you, you won't be disappointed, right? Those little things to get that going keeps that sales process going. And, of course, we want them to improve, to hit more good shots and bad shots, and to have more fun with friends, to shoot lower scores. They told us that's what they want. So it's translated additional lesson and practice opportunities. For a private facility, what does this mean, having a good coach on it? We'll take like just roughly the annual value of a member and the years as a golf member and blah, blah, blah. And what if you were able to increase the number of members by 50 over a year? You just raised that golf facility's income or revenue by $18 million over 12 years. What if you were able to get them to spend a little bit more money just because you're asking like questions like, hey, you got to try the Philly cheesesteak sandwich, it's the best. Or like, hey, I noticed that putter that you're using is kind of short. Get you another putter, let you have a try and see what you think about it. And then let's figure out if we can get you a good price on that, right? You can see that it jumps up again. Or what if you like the average longevity of somebody staying at a member of the club is roughly 12 years and you were able to extend it by 3 more years, which means they would spend more money and what have you as well. You would jump that up to $270 million. But what happens if you're able to increase all three? And that's what we're really talking about. By getting them to stay longer, retaining them, by getting them to spend a little bit more money, and then by bringing more new golfers into your mix. Now it's like a home run. And do you think as a PGA professional that a GM or a board of a country club would even ever entertain the idea of letting you go? No, right? It's negotiation time now because look what you're bringing. Imagine if you could bring slides like this into your presentations and show them the value that you have. So, welcome to golf. We got 6 facilities. We're going to pilot in 2020. It looks something like this. We've got the final selection done. We did training in Orlando, and then COVID hit. We weren't able to do any grand openings. We weren't able to do really anything else after that. And the amazing part is that only 2.5, the Fort Sam Houston one opened up late into the year, were able to open and under very limited restrictions. And this is what's insane about these. Chambers Bay had 181 students participate in this Welcome to Golf program, and that was in 90 days. And in those 90 days, from these new golfers, they had 300 rounds of golf, and 66 students participated in these practice with the pro events that we had. And you can see that Common Ground had 75, and that's a Denver property, so it's very seasonal. And again, Fort Sam Houston is just opening up. They're keeping it to just military personnel in base right now. He's not able to solicit civilians, so limited access, but he's already killing it. Right. So what are we going to do in 2021? Well, we created some momentum, but we found out that there's maybe a little bit of a missing ingredient that we overlooked, and this is what it is. we need the golf course staff to buy into the program as well. And we need to define what those behaviors would look like. Because you could be the best instructor, most friendly, outgoing, getting people to feel comfortable, excited. And if they go meet an unfriendly staff member at your facility, that there could just turn off somebody from coming back ever again. So we need to get the facility staff on board as well, just as much as the instructors were about creating golfers now and not students. And we had to find what those right behaviors were by putting them in a high-performing environment. And what that really translates to is the culture of the facility. And like you see in this screenshot here, like it means that everybody at the facility is really part of this whole welcoming the golf experience, not just the instructors. If that's the case, then what we had to do is that we had to put an additional focus this year in 2021 of inviting the GMs to the training sessions, explaining the story to them why it matters and why everything we do in this program is to benefit the facility. And by doing that, now we have our GMs already bought into it, and the instructors and the GMs and the marketing people at every facility work as a team. And as a result, we're really excited to see where it's all going to go. Just last week, we finished the final session of the training. So the three-legged stool, I invite all of you to really put something like this as a game plan at your facilities to invite people, introduce them, and then retain them. Keep calm. We're almost done here. And what we've learned from all this is that business as usual just won't. We can't have this pandemic that happened, which may not have anything like this ever again in our lifetime, to let it go to just to the negative side when we have more people coming and trying the game of golf for the first time, right? And the story I like to talk about that is like what I call "Where's Your Pencil?" Paul Auster is an author and a writer, and he tells the story how his favorite ball player of all time was Willie Mays. And one time when he was a little kid, he's hanging out by the field, and sure enough, Willie Mays goes walking by the fence right in front of him. And he goes, Mr. Mays, can I get an autograph? And he goes, sure, kid, and he gives him a card or whatever it is. And he goes, do you have a pencil? He goes, no. And he's, hey, Dad, do you have it? And he's sorry. And then he's asking people, nobody had a pencil. And Willie Mays said to him, sorry, kid, no pencil, no autograph, and gave him back the paper and walked away. And he never got to see Willie Mays ever again. I know, it's sad. But he determined that at that point, never again would he be unprepared for an opportunity that could come around. And when we look at this bubble, we're all kind of like, I'm telling you now, January just blew last year's January out the door, and as far as rounds and all that. So we're still in a high. February would be interesting to see. But if it does turn to a downward trend, are you ready? Do you have your pencil? Are you ready to go? Do you know what needs to be done? And then the three-legged stool, again, I encourage you to try to put something together. It doesn't have to be these words or anything, but like actually have a game plan of how you're going to keep people at your facility by creating an amazing event. And we can't wait for customers to come to us anymore. We can't just put a flyer out and a business card and hope people will come. We have to be the ones that go out to our communities and pull people in and tell them about how the great game of golf can affect their lives, their relationship, their workplaces, their health. There's so many reasons why golf is like the ultimate. And then we do need to manage the new golfer pathway up as far as he or she wants to go or as far as we can take them. And it's going to result in stuff like this. And yes, hoping there's some GMs and head pros and director of golfs on this call because we can't do it without you. We want you to be a part of the process just like the instructors and the coaches are as well. And I kind of wrap up towards here with this. You don't need the steering wheel. And this is what I mean. My kids are small. You might have seen carts like this outside your grocery stores or at Office Depot and what have you. And they would get in the cart, and they were like moving the steering wheel, and I would watch them. And anytime they'd turn left, I'd turn left. Anytime they turn right, I'd turn right. And there was some goofy stuff going on in supermarkets. I'm sure people have us on video and look at it often. But one day I was in a rush, and I'm coming, and they're like in the cart and driving, and I didn't have time, and there was the candy aisle, and they like were turning really hard to try to go in that candy aisle, and I didn't have time for it. I just went right through. And that's when they realized, oh my gosh, like Dad's the one controlling. We never had control over this. He probably hated my guts, And that's what I'm telling all of you as well. Is the steering wheel is a crutch. It's the title. It's the whatever it is, the position of authority. It's easy to say like, well, I'm not going to do this until somebody tells me to do this. But if that's the case, you might have that steering wheel, but you don't have control over the situation. These people here didn't wait till they got into leadership positions and then decided to act like them. They were acting like leaders long before anybody even knew of them and what they've done to impact humanity. And I'm asking you to do the same thing. A great measure of a golf coach could simply be how many people are you bringing to help fall in love with the game and then want to play your golf facility more than any other place. And all I would say is, like, start now. I mean, we see this stuff on our phone, and forgive me, this is an old picture, but when this comes up, install now, later, or details for the software update, come on. I think we were all kind of, if we were honest here, we would all say, yeah, we would circle later, because I don't want to do it now. I'm too busy to do it now. Or, like, you know, if I have to install apps, it means I have to get rid of photos and apps, and or like, yeah, but I like the way things worked on my phone. I don't want to do this update. It might change everything, and that's not what I'm all about. You know, I don't have time to learn it, right? And I think that's how it is in life sometimes. We have all the reasons and excuses of why not to do these things. But I guarantee you, if you're one of them who doesn't, you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out to the opportunity of the people that don't have the steering wheels, but are actually the ones that are still in control of the whole situation. So I implore you to start now. Hey, us at NGF and wrapping, like, all the statistics and data that we do, I mean, it's because of people like you. We have an incredible, incredible board of directors. You can see some of the names here. And I just want to say, a lot of facility owners and operators and GMs and head pros and directors of golf don't know that it only costs you $250 to become an NGF member for the year. And with that, you get everything, you know, like discounts on direct marketing. You get all these reports that can fill it, like all the information you need for helping you make the right decisions in businesses. We can target your marketing. We have this thing called golf maps that will show you all, like, how many golfers are in your 5, 10, 15, 20, 50-mile radius, how many of them are playing that are left-handed, what's their household income, how many kids they have. I mean, these are all things that are available to you as a member at NGF. So because I said earlier that the sales process never ends, I just had to throw this slide out there as well. And I'm hoping you would consider joining us. It's a great family. Thousands of facilities do use us. And hopefully you're not joining just because, like, wow, $250 for the year, it's only like 5 or 6 greens fees. But you're doing it because that investment is an investment for you and your property that'll help you succeed. And your rewards and the benefits will far outweigh that $250 that you invested. So, hey, thank you so much. You guys have been amazing. I appreciate you taking your time with us. And we're almost on the hour here. And Scott, I'll turn it over back to you.
Ted, wow, thank you so much. What a fantastic presentation, and a lot of great information there for everybody to chew on. I know I got a few messages here in the chat whenever we got to the golf course photos, so that one really struck home with a few people. Everybody, I think we got a few minutes here for some questions. Ted, if that's all right, if you don't mind hanging out for a couple extra minutes.
Be my pleasure.
You know, let's get it started on that point with the course photos and our websites and the above the fold. You know, what do you view as kind of an ideal marketing point above that fold, and does that vary kind of by facility type, public, private, et cetera?
Yeah, clearly, but the real takeaway on that is that we need to show activity, what golf is really about, right? Again, and I hate going back to it, but when we're showing the golf hole and empty with no people on it, that's the 1/4-inch drill. That's not why people want to go out there. If it's just about the grass and whatever, they can go to any park and hang out and not cost themselves a dime. So regardless of facility, I think we need to take advantage of showing people engage in some type of activity in our golf courses. And for those of you that have private clubs or ballrooms and you host weddings there, let's say the number one picture I see when people are promoting weddings is a table setting with all the nice china and the napkins folded like, you know, ducks or whatever it is. And that's how they're promoting it. It seems to me, if I was looking for a facility for a wedding, I'd like to see the bride and the groom in the shot with all the groom's people in there and the people having fun and the joyous activity that it is. It's a once in a lifetime activity for most people, right? So that above the fold, regardless of type of facility, I think the ingredient that we should all focus on is that having people in there would help me make the decision, like, I want to come to that facility that looks like people are having fun and engaging and having an amazing experience versus the one that just shows me a golf hole or just a banquet table set up.
Excellent. I had one come in here looking at what type of facilities did you do your advertising push in Denver through, whether that was high-end, low-end, short course, championship length course, night course.
Yeah, great question. It was a little bit of everything. We had some munis in there, Colorado Golf Association. There were 2 municipal courses that they actually owned, and we went there. We had some high-end daily fee golf courses. I don't believe we had any one or two private golf courses. And we actually like worked with an advertising agency called TDA Boulder, and they're phenomenal. They're really good. They did a great job. But that's where we spend a lot of money to have them get us in all these magazines and prints and Hulu and all that stuff. And we were just as shocked as everybody else that with so many eyeballs on our material that we ended up with such few respondents. And that's where we started realizing, it's not necessarily the advertising, it's the human relationship building of me going out and telling people what golf is all about and how fun it can be, and telling the story regardless of where I go to match it to what the needs of those people are. So I don't say don't do all that, but I think you'll often find that the marketing efforts that are put in prints and what have you are oftentimes the most costly with the least amount of ROIs, unless you're competing with every other golf course in your area where, again, super twilight rate, free golf after 5, and you get BOGO hot dogs and a couple of beers in there, then you might get people to come there. But as soon as your competitors see that as well, do you think they're just going to stand by and not do the same thing? No. And they're going to up you, right? They're going to try to like, hey, we're going to drop the price by $5 and do the same thing, until you might be driving more business to your golf courses, but it's at a loss leader. You're not making any money just to fill some footprints on your fairways. So I challenge everybody here to really take ownership, get off your properties, call businesses, call people, get them involved, and get them to come out to your facilities.
Very good. Very good. Does NGF track data for indoor golf facility participation?
We do. I think I had it on some of the slides that I showed, but we do. We break down everything into like types of facilities, to regions, to states, and we're working on this really cool thing. We're going to be changing our website, by the way, probably in the next couple of months. And I probably shouldn't be saying this because it sounds like a corny sales tactic, but we're going to raise our price on facility memberships too to like $300. So if you want to get in, now's the time. Yeah, we can break it down into any demographics you want. So regardless of what type of business you have, we can provide you with some information.
Very good. In the beginning, you mentioned the opportunity with Topgolf and all the players that are using those non-traditional methods. How do we translate those players and get them out to the golf course, taking lessons from our professionals and playing more golf?
Yeah, good question. And this is something that when I was with the PGA, we struggled for that answer as well. But I would say at minimal, if you don't already know who the executive team is at Topgolf, who the managers are, whatever, and really set up a time, like an hour or so, to meet with them and their staff and try to look for opportunities of how you can work together, because I would say Topgolf is definitely looking for the expansion of getting people to go to facilities to enjoy the game of golf too, because it's only going to help them coming back as well. And then vice versa. I mean, if those people are just going to be Topgolf people, I think they're going to do it during birthday parties and still have some fun events and what have you, but the opportunity is going to be missed. Whereas if we get these people also playing on golf courses, there's a better opportunity to cement them into becoming golfers that everybody, Topgolf and the golf courses, will benefit from, because they'll be playing more frequently and they'll become avid golfers. They won't drop out of the game.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Ted, really appreciate you taking a couple extra minutes here to answer some questions, and thank you for being on with us today and for sharing your and National Golf Foundation's wealth of knowledge with our PGA members and associates. I know it was very beneficial to all involved, and we truly appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity too, Scott. I know we've been at this for several months now, and I'm happy that it came to be. And like I had on my last slide, if anybody needs, don't hesitate to stalk me. I'm there for you. I can answer any questions or have some of my team do it. And following Rick, man, that was going to be like, woo, challenge. He's such a good guy, and I was just sucking up everything that he was talking about. Like, and I think my mouth was open, like, So, thank you, Scott. Thank you, everybody. I greatly appreciate it.
Ted, thank you. Have a wonderful week, sir.
You too. Thank you. Now, bye-bye.
Well, STPGA members and associates, this will wrap up the 53rd Southern Texas PGA Annual Meeting and Education Forum. On behalf of everyone here at the STPGA office, thank each and every one of you for making this online forum such a success here over the last 2 days. Obviously, we look forward here at the office to getting out into the world and hopefully seeing each and every one of you at some point in 2021. Be sure to keep up with your emails for these opportunities, starting off with the Pro Championship at Carlton Woods coming up on March 15th and 16th. Thank you all for everything that you do for golf, and if there's ever anything that myself or any of our team here at the office can do, please don't hesitate to reach out. I hope everybody has a fantastic week, and we look forward to seeing you soon.